Hi, this is Paul Winsky with the Harris County, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Office, your horticulture agent. And today I'm going to talk about an EarthKind modern rose trial that we performed here in Harris County. But before we get started, let's talk a little bit about what EarthKind is. So EarthKind is a landscape program and it uses research-proven techniques. So this program started in the early to mid-90s. Dr. Steve George was probably considered the godfather of EarthKind, and he's done extensive research in this program and quite a bit with roses, but here lately we've been looking at perennials, ornamental grasses, vegetables, you name it. This technique can be applied to anything that you grow. One of the keys to successfully using EarthKind practices is it has very low inputs. And what does that mean? We don't add any additional fertilizer. We only provide irrigation as needed. There are no pesticides or fungicides that are applied. So all the good things that we want to look at, that the way we want to grow, are incorporated in this EarthKind process. So in the grand scheme of things, it helps to preserve and protect the environment. So it really pulls together the best management practices of organic and traditional gardening. And it is effective, it's environmentally friendly, so it's a win-win for everyone. So our objectives in this trial was to identify some roses that would have outstanding landscape performance with very few inputs. So no pesticides, no fertilizers, and limited irrigation. And when I talk about limited irrigation, the plants are watered on a regular basis the first year in order to get them to establish. After that, water is only applied as needed. And you're probably wondering, how do you do that? Stick around, we will work our way through that. So we wanted to also demonstrate EarthKind practices, not only to the public, but to the green industry, for the landscapers, plant producers, to show them how this program really does work. So in 2014, we looked at 20 different varieties. They were installed in an urban setting. Potentially these are new hybrid tea varieties, which are always a challenge here in Texas with regard to the amount of disease they get, their care. So we were really anxious to see how well these plants were going to perform. We had 4 replications, so that's 4 beds with these 20 plants randomized in each bed, and then we evaluated them over a 3-year period. So this would not have happened without a collaboration, and that's probably one of the keys for extension is collaboration, partnerships. So it was worked out quite well that MD Anderson at the time had a piece of land that we could put this trial on. So I tip my hat to MD Anderson for working with us. The Texas Master Gardeners and the Houston Rose Society, these volunteers logged quite a number of hours in order to make this trial come to fruition. And here's just a image of some of the volunteers that were out there. Of course, we are always out there during the hottest parts of the day, and everything worked out extremely well. So again, the Harris County Master Gardeners, the Houston Rose Society, this would not have occurred without them. So here's the trial site, and as you can see, it was down in the medical center on Old Spanish Trail and Fannin. You can see the aerial view. The trial was around long enough that we even made Google Maps at the time, and you can see the 4 beds that are laid out, the length of them, and the plants after they were installed. So here, one of the keys, or one of the steps with EarthKind, is improving the soil. And how do we do that? With compost. Now this soil was really very poor. There had been a building on it at one time. So it was very clay, very compacted. We did pull soil samples. We had the soil tested, but we improved that by adding 3-inch layer of compost. This helps to with the improvement with regard to the beneficial microbes that are in the soil. It adds some nutrient. It helps with the overall improvement in the soil structure. So you can see here, this 3-inch layer of compost is being added. And then you can see here the 4 beds with it being incorporated and tilled in to a depth of 6 inches. So we now know, and that's the extent of quote unquote the fertilizer that we're using in this trial. No 10-10-10, whether it's or anything. This is basically our organic fertilizer, this initial application of compost. And here you can see planting day. We're laying out the trial. Each of these plants are represented across the 4 beds. You can see the volunteers working in the background, getting them planted. The other key, so we've added compost, we've got our plants. The other key to EarthKind landscaping is using drip irrigation. And this image is one of our shrub trials that we had for an EarthKind demonstration. And the drip irrigation works extremely well because it is applying the water where the plant needs it. It's applying it at the root system. It's a very efficient system. We're not wasting any water. If we're not doing a lot of overhead irrigation, we should not see a lot of disease issues also. So it's a very good system, especially for ornamentals, flower beds, things like that. This drip irrigation system works extremely well. And here's the final planting. So the last thing we do, we've got compost added, we've got drip irrigation, and now we mulch with a 3-inch layer of mulch. And this is nothing spectacular, all right? This is basically out of the back of the chipper truck from an arborist. And that's what we use. We put down a 3-inch layer. We do not mound it up around the base of the plants. We pull it back a little bit from there. But over the course of this trial, we add additional mulch as needed. And so that's where we get our additional nutrients. That layer where the soil is and where the mulch is, it breaks down over time. We get humus. The microorganisms are working on it, and it helps release the nutrients back into the soil. So here we are at the beginning of the trial. Everything planted, these were planted on 10-foot centers. And this is a little bit further into the trial, and you can see weed pressure was always a challenge, and we're always going to have to deal with that. But we made it through the 3 years, and the trial performed extremely well. So let's talk about some of the plants and how they did. One of the things I want to point out is this trial was also replicated with the help of Dr. David Slezak at University of Wisconsin River Falls. He was able to get this trial in at the Green Bay Botanical Garden, which is Zone 4. And then another fellow agent, William Holcomb in Clay County, Texas, which is up near, it's definitely north of us because it's at Zone 7, near Wichita Falls, up in that area. He was able, his trial just finished last year. So now we've got 3 trials, 3 years of data for each trial. And we have it in Zone 4 up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, Zone 7 in Clay County, and then down in our area in Zone 9. So now we've got to see what cream rose to the top, which plants performed well. As you can see here, this is Carefree Beauty, and Carefree Beauty is already a Texas, EarthKind rose. It's probably one of the first ones that made it into the program. And the reason why we grow this one is we use it as our positive control. We know this plant performs well. So we want to have a positive control. We also want to have a negative control, and we did have a negative control in there. We want to make sure that if there's black spot in the area, this plant's going to get it. And so we did have a variety in there that also showed that black spot was in the area, and we did not see it on these in some of the high performers, which tells us that the genetics of these plants is very strong and they perform extremely well. So Carefree Beauty was bred by Dr. Griffith Buck at Iowa State. It has these nice rich pink blooms, rich pink blooms, and it flushes continuously. So it's a great shrub rose, no fragrance. And the flower habit is a little bit open. It's not quite a single, and it's not a, it doesn't have that hybrid tea look, but it is a great pink rose to have into the garden, especially in the Houston area. Pink Enchantment was one of the ones that performed extremely well. It has a large flower, light pink in color, and it does have fragrance. So one of the things that we were happy to see just from the initial information, initial data, is that a lot of these roses were able to bring fragrance into the landscape. And if you can have fragrance in the landscape, that's another added benefit. Color is great, but fragrance just adds another dimension to that landscape. So Pink Enchantment has these large, it's almost like a teacup type flower. Lots of petals, very thick, and very good production. And this variety was bred by Cordis Roses, which is they are located in Germany. So this is a German breeder that has some really good genetics out on the market. Here is Gaymond. This is a variety that was actually bred by Dr. Zlizak. And this is more of a shrub type. And you can see yellow flowers on that. So yellow roses of Texas are always a big deal. This performed extremely well. Very thick foliage, very dark green. It just seemed to always have flowers on it. Now, down in our heat through the summer, you'll get the flowers. But yellow tends to fade, and as you can see in this image, there is some fading in there, so it'll fade to white. But overall, this plant, over the 3-year trial, just performed extremely well. And we do not prune these roses during the entire trial, so you can see the amount of growth this plant had put on in that time period. And then last but not least is Plum Perfect. This is a great looking, has that true, hybrid tea-like look to it. It's got a great fragrance. It's got that plum colored flowers, and you can see the production on this plant. We would always see heavy production in the spring. We would see blooming throughout the summer, sporadic, and then heavy again in the fall. So again, we never sprayed these for any insects. I would see beneficials on them. Long-legged flies were quite popular. We never had aphids. We never had thrips. Well, we probably had some thrips issues, but it was never to the point that it was negatively affecting the plant. And spider mites were not an issue. So overall, we were quite happy with the performance of these plants and how the trial went. So, if you need any additional information on EarthKind, there is a website. The EarthKind website is listed here. The QR code, if you want to use your phone to scan that would be great. And then Aggie Horticulture, for anything horticulture, whether you're growing vegetables, fruits and nuts, anything like that, grapes, it's a great resource with a lot of information there. For us here in Harris County, we have our website, we're on social media, we're on Facebook, we have a YouTube channel which has all of our programs that we do for the homegrown series. And so there's over 1.5 years now of information, of videos that you can watch. So, please take some time. If you've got a question, we may have already done a recording of it already. So to close things out, I hope you're now aware or better aware of what EarthKind landscaping is. And this is just a brief highlight of how it performed for us here in Harris County. So I want to thank you for joining us. Again, my name is Paul Winsky. I am the Extension Agent for Commercial Horticulture here in Harris County. Thank you for joining us, and Harris County, keep gardening.